All right, today we're going to dig into a really powerful study from 2024 that uncovers a hidden danger in our global food chain. It all starts on the vegetable farms of Ghana. And let me tell you, what this study found, it might just change how you see your next salad.
So let's kick things off with a question that might make you look at your lunch a little differently. Because you know that journey our food takes from the farm to our table? It's way more complex and sometimes way more dangerous than most of us ever think about.
Okay, look at this number, 65.6%. So what is that? Well, according to this new study in Ghana's Ashanti region, that's the percentage of urban vegetable farmers with low compliance with pesticide safety. Let me put that another way. Almost 2 out of every 3 farmers are not using these chemicals safely. And that isn't just a number on a page. It's a huge, glaring red flag for our entire food system.
So, how did we get to this point? Well, this isn't just speculation. The data we're talking about comes from a super detailed field survey of 387 farmers. This gives us a really clear window into what's actually happening on the ground.
And the root of the problem, it's actually something we can all understand. We all want more fresh, healthy vegetables, right? But that huge surge in demand is putting incredible pressure on farmers to grow more and grow it faster. And that has led to this massive spike in pesticide use. But here's the kicker, the really dangerous part. The use of chemicals has gone way up, but the safety training and the proper equipment, that hasn't kept pace at all. Now, this isn't like a single domino falling. The misuse of these pesticides creates this massive ripple effect, like a stone thrown into a pond. The consequences are devastating, and they spread way, way beyond just the farm. The study really breaks down this fallout into 3 big areas. First up, the health of the farmers themselves and their communities. Then, you've got the safety of the environment, and, of course, the food that we all eat. And finally, believe it or not, it impacts the economic stability of the entire nation. And just listen to this quote from the research. It really lays out the human cost in no uncertain terms. The very people working so hard to feed us are facing these awful, life-threatening health risks. We're talking cancer, respiratory diseases, all from being exposed to these chemicals day in and day out. And the worst part, a lot of the time, they don't even know it's happening.
And this problem doesn't just stay on the farm, it travels. The study found that some farmers, often because they just don't know any better, are still using banned, highly toxic pesticides, stuff like DDT. And these chemicals, they don't just go away. Nope, they seep into the soil, they get into the water, and they stick around as residue on the very vegetables that end up on our plates.
So you see, this public health crisis is also a massive economic one. It's a double whammy. When shipments of vegetables show up with pesticide levels that are way too high, they get rejected by international markets. Just like that. And this has led to actual export bans, which cost the country a ton of money and absolutely crushes the livelihoods of the farmers. Okay, so this all brings up a huge question, right? Why? Why is this happening? If the risks are so incredibly high, why are these safety practices just not being followed? Let's dive into our next section because the data really starts to explain the choices these farmers are making. Just look at this chart. It really puts the scale of the problem into perspective. That huge bar, that's the 65.6% in the low compliance group, an overwhelming majority. And on the other end, a tiny fraction, just 7%, are actually operating at a high level of safety. So you see, we're not talking about a few isolated incidents here. This is a systemic, widespread issue. And now we get to what might be the single most important, most revealing number in this entire study. Ready for it? Negative 0.56. What does that mean? Well, the researchers calculated what they call an awareness index to measure how well farmers actually understand the risks involved, and that was the final score. An awareness index of negative 0.56, that is deeply negative. It means the vast majority of these farmers simply do not get the full picture. They don't understand the scope of the danger, not to their own health, not to their crops, and not to the environment. And this is so key. It's not about them being careless. It's about a fundamental lack of knowledge. This table here really lays out the push and pull of the whole situation. On one side, you have the things that help. Things like awareness, making a decent profit, and just having more farming experience. All of these push farmers toward being safer. The more you know, the more you earn, the safer you are. Simple enough. But then, on the other side, you have this giant wall, this huge barrier. The cost of protective gear. The PPE. Let's just double click on that profitability point for a second because it's so important. The data shows this crystal clear connection. When farmers are doing better financially, they are way more likely to invest in being safe. What does that tell us? It tells us that safe farming and economic stability are two sides of the same coin. They go hand in hand. You really can't fix one without fixing the other. Okay, so the great thing about this study is that it doesn't just point out all of the problems. It actually offers a path forward, a potential cure. So now that we know the causes, this lack of awareness and these huge economic barriers, the question becomes, what's the plan? And here it is. The study lays out a clear 5-step blueprint for making things better. Step 1, education. We've got to tackle that negative awareness score head on. 2, boost profitability. Improve how they get their produce to market, because we know money talks. 3, create platforms so farmers can share knowledge with each other. 4, make safety gear affordable, maybe through subsidies. And finally, step 5, actually strengthen and enforce the regulations that are already on the books. It's not just theory, it's a practical, comprehensive roadmap to a safer system. And that really brings us to our final thought here. This deep dive into what's happening in Ghana, it's more than just a single case study. It's really a mirror, reflecting a challenge that we see all over the world. It forces every one of us to ask a fundamental question about the food we put on our own tables. What is its true cost? And what are we going to do to help build a food system that's safe for everyone, from the person who grows it to the person who eats it? Thanks for joining us for this explainer.